The Ashford ballroom glittered with 1,000 candles, their light catching on jewelled gowns and polished silver. But Eleanor Hartwell stood in the shadows near the refreshment table, watching the spectacle as though separated by glass. She had learned long ago to make herself small at such gatherings, to fade into the wallpaper while her cousin Amelia commanded every eye. Tonight was no different. Amelia held court near the orchestra, her laughter like wind chimes, surrounded by admirers who competed for her attention with the desperation of moths circling flame. Eleanor smoothed the modest rose silk of her gown, a dress remade from her mother's wardrobe 3 seasons past. The fabric was fine enough, but hopelessly outdated. The sleeves unfashionably narrow, the waist too high. She had done her best with it, adding fresh lace at the collar, but beside Amelia's confection of ivory satin and seed pearls, Eleanor might as well have worn sackcloth. Good heavens, is that the Hartwell charity case? Lady Pemberton's voice carried across the ballroom with the precision of a stage actress. I had forgotten she still attended these functions. How quaint. Eleanor's fingers pressed crescents into her fan. She kept her gaze fixed on the dancers, willing herself to become invisible, to dissolve into the shadows that were her only refuge at such gatherings. One must admire her persistence, Miss Caroline Thornbury added, her voice dripping with false sweetness. Though I cannot imagine what she hopes to accomplish. No gentleman of quality would consider a girl with neither fortune nor beauty. The words struck like physical blows, but Eleanor had grown accustomed to such cruelty. She was the poor relation, tolerated by her aunt's family out of obligation to her late father's memory. Her presence at society functions was an act of charity, and everyone knew it. Perhaps she hopes to catch a merchant, Lady Pemberton suggested with a tinkling laugh, or a country vicar desperate enough to overlook her circumstances. Eleanor turned away, seeking escape in the relative privacy of the terrace doors. The night air would be cold, but preferable to the suffocating weight of their mockery. She had taken only 3 steps when a commotion near the entrance drew every eye in the ballroom. The orchestra faltered mid-phrase. Conversations died like candles snuffed by wind. Into the sudden silence walked a man who seemed to carry darkness with him like a cloak. He was tall, impossibly tall, with hair black as midnight and skin pale as marble. His evening clothes were impeccable, cut in a style that suggested continental tailoring, but it was his face that held Eleanor frozen in place. Beautiful was too simple a word. His features possessed a perfection that seemed almost inhuman, as though a master sculptor had carved him from moonlight and shadow. His eyes swept the ballroom with ancient weariness, and when they passed over Eleanor, she felt the air leave her lungs. Lord Blackwood, their host, Mr. Ashford, announced with barely concealed nervousness, "We are honoured by your presence." Whispers erupted like wildfire. Lord Blackwood. The name carried weight, though Eleanor could not recall hearing it before. He was foreign, certainly, perhaps from the continent. His bearing suggested nobility, but there was something else. Something that made the other guests unconsciously draw back as he moved through the room. Who is he? Eleanor whispered to her cousin Margaret, who had materialized at her elbow with the gossip hound instinct of a true society matron in training. Lord Lucian Blackwood, Margaret breathed, her eyes wide. They say he owns half of Transylvania and has estates throughout Europe. Impossibly wealthy. Impossibly reclusive. No one has seen him in London for decades, he did, though his name appears in the oldest family records. Some say, she lowered her voice to a whisper, some say he does not age. Eleanor's rational mind dismissed such nonsense, but something in her chest tightened with inexplicable recognition. Lord Blackwood moved through the crowd like a wolf among sheep, and the sheep knew it, even if they could not name their fear. Lord Blackwood, Amelia purred, materializing before him with practiced grace. What an unexpected pleasure. We had thought you myth. His smile was polite, but distant. Myth has its uses, Miss Hartwell. Amelia Hartwell. She extended her hand with the expectation of worship that usually accompanied the gesture. Lord Blackwood took her fingers briefly, but his attention had already moved past her, scanning the room with that same weary searching. Eleanor found herself stepping backward, seeking the safety of the shadows once more. But his gaze locked onto hers with the precision of an arrow finding its mark. Time seemed to suspend. The ballroom faded. There was only his eyes, dark as midnight, but somehow luminous, holding depths that spoke of centuries rather than years. Eleanor's pulse suspended, not from fear, but from a recognition she could not name. He moved toward her. The crowd parted like water before a ship's prow. "No," Lady Pemberton hissed. "Surely he does not mean to—" But he did. Lord Blackwood stopped before Eleanor, ignoring Amelia's outraged gasp, ignoring the scandalized whispers that erupted around them. He bowed, a gesture of such old-world elegance that it seemed to belong to another age entirely. "Forgive my boldness," he said, his voice like dark velvet, carrying an accent she could not place. "But I find myself compelled to ask, would you grant me the honor of this dance?" Eleanor's mind went blank. Every eye in the ballroom fixed upon her. Amelia's face had gone white with fury. Lady Pemberton looked as though she might faint from shock. Eleanor's voice emerged as barely a whisper. "I am not... That is... I am only... You are exactly who I wish to dance with," Lord Blackwood said softly, extending his hand. "If you will permit it." Her fingers moved of their own accord, settling into his palm. His skin was cool, almost cold, but his touch sent warmth racing up her arm. He led her onto the dance floor as the orchestra, recovering from their shock, launched into a waltz. Eleanor had learned to dance, of course. All young ladies did. But she had rarely practiced, relegated to the wallflower's bench at every pshul. Yet, as Lord Blackwood's hand settled at her waist, as they began to move, she found herself following his lead with effortless grace. "You are wondering why," he murmured, his voice pitched for her ears alone. "I am wondering many things," Eleanor admitted. "But yes, that foremost among them." His lips curved in what might have been a smile. "Because you are the only person in this room who is real." "I do not understand." "No," he agreed, "but you will." They turned across the floor, and Eleanor became aware that they danced alone. The other guests had drawn back, creating a circle around them, watching with expressions ranging from shock to outrage to naked envy. Amelia stood at the edge of the floor, her face a mask of barely controlled fury. "You have made me conspicuous," Eleanor said, though without accusation. They will make me pay for this. They mock what they fear, Lord Blackwood replied, and they fear what they do not understand. And what do they not understand about me? His eyes met hers, and in their depths she saw something ancient and sad. That you have a strength they will never possess. The strength to see clearly, to recognize truth when others embrace comfortable lies. The waltz ended. Lord Blackwood bowed once more, then did something that sent fresh gasps through the assembled crowd. He raised Eleanor's hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to her knuckles that lingered just a fraction too long. "I hope," he said quietly, "that you will permit me to call upon you." Before Eleanor could respond, he was gone, moving through the crowd with that same predatory grace, leaving silence and scandal in his wake. The moment he departed, the ballroom erupted. Amelia descended upon Eleanor like a fury from Greek myth. "How dare you?" she hissed, her beautiful face twisted with rage. "How dare you make a spectacle of yourself with my guest?" "I did not seek his attention," Eleanor said, finding her voice steady despite her racing heart. "He asked. I accepted. That is all." "That is all?" Lady Pemberton had joined them, her fan snapping open with the sound of a gunshot. "You, a nobody with nothing, dare to accept the attentions of one of the wealthiest lords in Europe? Have you no shame?" "I have done nothing shameful," Eleanor replied, and was surprised by the steel in her own voice. "I danced. Nothing more. You have embarrassed this family," her aunt, Lady Hartwell, announced, materializing with the impeccable timing of one who had been watching for the optimal moment to strike. "You will return home immediately, and you will not, under any circumstances, receive Lord Blackwood, should he be foolish enough to call." Eleanor opened her mouth to protest, then closed it. What was the point? She had no power here, no voice. She was the charity case, the burden, the poor relation who should be grateful for whatever scraps fell from the family table. But as she turned to leave, she caught her reflection in one of the ballroom's many mirrors. Her cheeks were flushed, her eyes bright. She looked alive in a way she had never seen before. And she realized that for the first time in her life, she had been seen, truly seen. Not as the poor relation or the wallflower or the object of pity, but as herself. Whatever Lord Blackwood had recognized in her, it was real, and no amount of mockery could take that away. The carriage ride home passed in frigid silence. Amelia stared out the window with wounded pride, while Aunt Hartwell radiated disapproval like heat from a forge. Eleanor kept her hands folded in her lap, her expression carefully neutral. But inside, her heart still raced with the memory of that dance. She expected to be confined to her room. She expected lectures and recriminations. What she did not expect was the letter that arrived the following morning, delivered by a footman in livery so fine it made their household servants look like rag pickers. Aunt Hartwell intercepted it, of course. She read it aloud at breakfast, her voice dripping with disdain. "Lord Blackwood requests the honour of calling upon Miss Eleanor Hartwell this afternoon at 3 o'clock. She lowered the letter, her eyes cold. "Naturally, you will decline." "Naturally," Amelia echoed, buttering her toast with vicious precision. No gentleman of quality would pursue such an acquaintance unless his motives were suspect. Eleanor set down her teacup with deliberate care. And what suspect motives might those be? "Do not play the innocent," Aunt Hartwell snapped. You are a girl with no fortune and no prospects. If a wealthy lord shows interest, it can only be for one reason, and that reason is not marriage. The implications settled between them like poison. Eleanor felt heat rise to her cheeks, not from shame, but from anger. You presume much about a man you do not know, she said quietly. I know men, her aunt replied, and I know that respectable gentlemen do not single out penniless girls at balls unless they seek to take advantage. I will not have this family's reputation tarnished by your foolishness. You will send a polite refusal, and that will be the end of it. Eleanor looked at her aunt, at Amelia's smug satisfaction, at the breakfast table that represented everything small and suffocating about her life, and she made a decision. No, she said. The word fell into silence like a stone into still water. I beg your pardon? Aunt Hartwell's voice could have frozen fire. I said no. Eleanor stood, her hands steady despite the trembling in her legs. I will receive Lord Blackwood. You have controlled every aspect of my life since my father died. You have dictated my clothes, my activities, my friends. You have made me feel small and worthless and grateful for the scraps of your charity. But you cannot dictate this. I will see him. Then you will see him without the protection of this household, Aunt Hartwell said, rising to her full height. If you receive him, you do so knowing that you are no longer welcome under this roof. Eleanor's resolve wavered. She had no money, no prospects, nowhere to go. To defy her aunt was to choose destitution. But the memory of Lord Blackwood's eyes, of being seen and valued, gave her strength she had not known she possessed. Then I accept those terms, she said. She left the breakfast room with her head high, though her pulse beat visible at her throat. She had 3 hours until Lord Blackwood's arrival. 3 hours to prepare for a meeting that would determine the course of her entire life. At precisely 3 o'clock, the doorbell rang. Eleanor, dressed in her best day gown, a simple blue muslin that had belonged to her mother, waited in the drawing room. Aunt Hartwell had made good on her threat, retreating to her chambers and taking Amelia with her, leaving Eleanor to receive her caller without chaperone or support. Lord Blackwood entered the drawing room like darkness given form. In the afternoon light streaming through the windows, his pallor was even more pronounced, his beauty almost painful to behold. He carried a bouquet of white roses, their petals perfect as carved ivory. Miss Hartwell, he said, bowing, thank you for receiving me. I was told I should not. Eleanor replied honestly, I was told your intentions must be dishonourable, and that I was a fool to entertain them. A shadow crossed his face. Pain, perhaps, or recognition. And yet you are here. And yet I am here. She gestured to the settee. Please, sit, though I should warn you that I am no longer under my aunt's protection. By receiving you, I have forfeited my place in this household. So if your intentions are indeed dishonourable, I am now quite thoroughly compromised. Lord Blackwood did not sit. Instead, he moved to the window, his back to her, his shoulders tense. I should leave. I should never have come. I have already caused you harm. You have caused me nothing, Eleanor said. My aunt's cruelty is her own. You merely gave her an excuse to express what she has always felt. He turned to face her, and the expression on his face was raw with an emotion she could not name. "You do not know what you risk by associating with me?" "Then tell me." "I cannot. Cannot or will not." He moved toward her with that predatory grace, stopping close enough that she could feel the cold that seemed to emanate from him like winter fog. "Miss Hartwell, Eleanor, I am not what I appear." "None of us are," she replied. "I appear to be a meek, powerless girl. Yet I have just defied my family and chosen destitution over obedience. Appearances deceive." His hand rose, hovering near her cheek, but not quite touching. "I am dangerous. To me, to everyone. But especially to you. Because you—" He closed his eyes, as though in pain. "Because you make me want to be something I cannot be." Eleanor reached up and caught his hand, pressing it to her cheek. His skin was cold as marble, but she did not flinch. "What are you, Lord Blackwood?" "Lucian," he said hoarsely. "If we are to do this, you must call me Lucian." "What are you, Lucian?" He pulled away, pacing to the fireplace, gripping the mantle with white-knuckled intensity. "I am old, Eleanor. Older than this house. Older than this city. I have walked the earth for 5 centuries, watching empires rise and fall, watching everyone I have ever cared for age and die, while I remain unchanged." Eleanor's rational mind rejected the words, but something deeper, something primal, recognized the truth in them. "You are saying you are immortal." "I am saying I am cursed." He turned to face her, and his gaze carried the weight of sorrow. "I am what your kind calls vampire. A creature of darkness. A monster." The word should have terrified her. She should have run, should have screamed for help. Instead, Eleanor found herself moving closer, studying his face with new understanding. "You do not look like a monster," she said softly. "Monsters rarely do. That is what makes them dangerous." He laughed, a bitter sound. "I came to London seeking something I cannot name. Perhaps an end, perhaps a beginning. And then I saw you, standing in the shadows of that ballroom, and I knew you were the answer to a question I have been asking for centuries." "What question?" "Whether I deserve to hope." Eleanor's voice faltered. "And what did you conclude?" "That I do not, but that I will hope anyway." He moved toward her again, his movements careful, controlled. "I should not have come. I should not have sought you out. But I am selfish enough, lonely enough, desperate enough to risk your safety for the chance to know you. And that makes me the monster I claim to be." "Or it makes you human," Eleanor said. "Loneliness is not monstrous. Need is not evil. You have done me no harm, yet." The word hung between them like a blade. "I have done you no harm yet, but I am dangerous, Eleanor. My very nature is death. Then why do I feel more alive in your presence than I have in my entire life?" The question seemed to break something in him. He closed the distance between them in a single stride, his hands framing her face with desperate gentleness. "Because you are extraordinary. Because you see me, truly see me, and you do not look away. Because you are brave and true and everything beautiful that I can never be." "You are beautiful," Eleanor whispered. "I am dead." His thumb traced her cheekbone with aching tenderness. My heart does not beat. I do not breathe except by habit. I sustain myself on blood, though I have sworn never to take it from the innocent. I am everything your kind should fear. And yet I do not fear you. You should. But his hands remained gentle, cradling her face, as though she was something precious beyond measure. Eleanor, I am offering you nothing but danger and scandal. If you allow me into your life, you will be marked by association. Society will shun you. Your family will disown you. You will lose everything. I have already lost everything, Eleanor said. By receiving you, I have forfeited my place here. I have nowhere to go, no prospects, no future. So you see, I have nothing left to lose. Pain crossed his features. Then I have already destroyed you. No. Eleanor reached up, covering his hands with her own. You have freed me. For the first time in my life, I have made a choice that was truly mine. I have chosen to see you, to know you. Whatever comes of that choice will be mine to bear. Lucian's control seemed to fracture. He pulled her close, not in passion, but in desperate need, his face buried in her hair. I do not deserve you. Perhaps not, Eleanor agreed, her arms encircling him. But you have me nonetheless. They stood like that for a long moment, two souls finding solace in unexpected connection. Then Lucian pulled back, his expression resolute. I will not leave you destitute, he said. I have a house in London in Belgrave Square. It is yours if you will accept it. I will make arrangements for your comfort and security. You will want for nothing. That is not necessary. It is absolutely necessary. His voice was firm. You have lost your home because of me. I will not compound that harm by abandoning you to poverty. Please, Eleanor, allow me this much. She wanted to refuse, wanted to prove she was not motivated by material concerns. But practicality won over pride. She had no money, no skills, no way to support herself. To refuse his help would be foolish martyrdom. Very well, she said, but I will not be kept as a mistress. If I am to accept your protection, it must be with clear understanding between us. You have my word, Lucian said. I ask nothing of you but your company. The house is yours, freely given, with no obligation attached. And what of you? Where will you be? A sad smile touched his lips. I have many residences, but I confess, I hope you will permit me to visit, to continue our acquaintance, to... He paused, as though the words were difficult. To court you, if you will allow it. Eleanor's heart soared. A vampire wishes to court me? A man wishes to court you, Lucian corrected gently. A man who happens to be cursed with immortality, but a man nonetheless, with a man's heart and a man's hopes. Then yes, Eleanor said, I will allow it. I will welcome it. The smile that transformed his face was like sunrise after endless night. He raised her hand to his lips once more, pressing a kiss to her knuckles that seemed to seal a promise between them. I will make arrangements immediately, he said. By tomorrow evening you will be established in Belgrave Square. And then, if you will permit me, I would like to show you my world. The world that exists in the spaces between your society's rules and expectations. I would like that very much, Eleanor said. As Lucian departed, Eleanor felt the weight of her decision settle upon her shoulders. She had chosen an impossible path, had aligned herself with a creature that should not exist. But as she touched her hand to her cheek, where his fingers had rested, she felt no regret. She had been seen, she had been valued, and she had chosen her own fate. Whatever came next, it would be hers. The house in Belgrave Square was far grander than Eleanor had imagined. 3 stories of elegant Georgian architecture, with windows that caught the afternoon light, and a garden that stretched behind in careful cultivation. The staff, already in residence, treated her with a respect she had never experienced in her aunt's household. They called her Miss Hartwell, not with the condescension she had grown accustomed to, but with genuine deference. Lucian called the following evening, as promised. Eleanor received him in the drawing room, a space decorated in rich blues and golds that seemed to glow in the lamplight. "You have been generous beyond measure," Eleanor said as he entered. "This house, the staff, everything. It is too much." "It is barely enough," Lucian replied, "and it brings me joy to provide it. I have wealth beyond spending, accumulated over centuries. Let me use it to bring comfort to someone who deserves it." Over the following weeks, a pattern emerged. Lucian would call each evening as the sun set, and they would talk for hours. He told her of his life, of the centuries he had witnessed, of the loneliness that had become his constant companion. She told him of her childhood, of her father's death, of the slow erosion of her spirit under her aunt's cruel charity. "I was turned in 1357, Lucian said one evening, his voice distant with memory. "I was a knight, fighting in what your historians call the 100 Years' War. I was wounded, left for dead on the battlefield. An ancient vampire found me, saw something in me worth saving. Or perhaps he was simply lonely. He gave me his blood, transformed me, and then abandoned me to figure out my new nature alone." "That is cruel," Eleanor said softly. It was a different time. Cruelty was commonplace. But yes, it was hard. I spent decades learning to control my hunger, learning to move through human society without revealing what I was. I have been many things over the centuries: scholar, soldier, merchant, noble. I have amassed wealth and knowledge, but I have never found peace. And now?" He looked at her with such tenderness that her chest tightened. "Now, I begin to hope that peace might be possible." Their courtship was unlike anything Eleanor had imagined. Lucian took her to the theatre, to museums, to private concerts, where the music seemed to speak directly to her soul. He introduced her to other immortals, beings who had walked the earth for centuries, who had learned to coexist with humanity rather than prey upon it. "We are not monsters," a vampire named Catherine explained over tea one afternoon. She was elegant and kind, with the bearing of old French nobility. "We were human once, and we retain our humanity if we choose. Lucian has always chosen compassion over cruelty. It is why we respect him." But Eleanor also witnessed the darkness that shadowed Lucian's existence. She saw how he avoided mirrors, how he never ate in her presence, how he disappeared before dawn and did not return until dusk. She saw the weariness in his eyes, the weight of centuries that no amount of charm could fully disguise. One evening, nearly 2 months into their courtship, Eleanor found him standing in the garden, staring up at the stars with an expression of profound sadness. "What troubles you?" she asked, joining him on the terrace. I'm thinking of time, he said, of how it passes for you, but not for me. You are 23 now. In 10 years, you will be 33. In 50 years, if you are blessed with long life, you will be an old woman, and I will look exactly as I do now. Does that frighten you? It breaks my heart. He turned to her, his eyes bright with unshed tears. I will watch you age and die, Eleanor. I will lose you, as I have lost everyone I have ever cared for, and the thought of it is unbearable. Eleanor took his hand, feeling the familiar chill of his skin. Then change me. The words hung in the night air. Lucian stared at her as though she had suggested something obscene. No, he said flatly. Absolutely not. Why not? Because I will not curse you with this existence. I will not condemn you to watch everyone you love dear while you remain frozen in time. I will not steal your humanity for my own selfish desires. What if it is my desire? Eleanor challenged. What if I choose this? You do not know what you are choosing. You do not understand the weight of eternity, the loneliness, the endless years stretching ahead with no hope of rest. Then help me understand. Eleanor moved closer, her voice urgent. Teach me. Show me. But do not dismiss my choice simply because you fear I will regret it. I am not a child, Lucian. I am a woman capable of making my own decisions. He pulled away, pacing the terrace with agitated steps. Eleanor, I love you. I love you with an intensity that terrifies me. And because I love you, I cannot do this. I cannot transform you into what I am. Even if it means losing me. Especially then. His voice broke. I would rather have 50 years with you as you are than an eternity, knowing I stole your humanity. Eleanor felt tears sting her eyes. And what of what I want? Do I have no say in this? Of course you do, but I am asking you to want something else. To want a human life, human death, to want children and grandchildren, and the natural progression of years. I am asking you to want what I can no longer have. I want you, Eleanor said simply. Everything else is negotiable. Lucian closed his eyes, his face a mask of pain. You are asking me to be selfish, to take what I want regardless of the cost to you. I am asking you to respect my choice, to see me as your equal, capable of deciding my own fate. The argument ended without resolution, but it marked a shift in their relationship. The question of transformation hung between them like a sword, unspoken, but always present. 3 months into their courtship, scandal found them. A society columnist published a scathing piece about the mysterious Lord Blackwood and his mortal companion, speculating about the nature of their relationship with barely concealed innuendo. Overnight, Eleanor became notorious. Her aunt sent a letter, brief and venomous. You have made your choice. Live with the consequences. But to Eleanor's surprise, the scandal brought unexpected allies. Catherine and other members of the immortal community rallied around her, introducing her to society matrons who valued independence over convention. Slowly, carefully, Eleanor built a new life, one not defined by her family's expectations or society's rules. And through it all, Lucian remained constant. He courted her with old-world elegance, treating her with a respect and tenderness that made her previous life seem like a half-remembered dream. 6 months after their first meeting, on a cool autumn evening, Lucian arrived at the Belgrave Square house with an expression of solemn determination. "I have made a decision," he said without preamble, "and I need you to listen before you respond." Eleanor set aside her book, her heart racing. "I am listening." "I love you, Lucian Ed. I love you with every fragment of my soul that remains capable of love. And I have been a coward, hiding behind noble excuses to avoid facing the truth." "What truth?" "That you are right, that you deserve to choose your own fate, that my fear of your regret does not give me the right to make decisions for you." He knelt before her chair, taking her hands in his. "Eleanor Hartwell, I am asking you to marry me, to become my wife in the eyes of both human and immortal law. And if, after a year of marriage, you still wish to be transformed, I will honor that choice. I will give you my blood and bring you into immortality, if that is truly what you want." Eleanor's hands stilled. "You would do that? Even though you fear I will regret it?" "I fear many things, Lucian Ned. But I fear losing you more. I fear living another 5 centuries without you. I fear the emptiness that will consume me when you are gone. So yes, I will risk your regret. I will trust your judgment. I will give you the choice I have been denying you." Tears streamed down Eleanor's cheeks. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I will marry you. Yes to all of it." Lucian rose, pulling her into his arms, and for the first time since they had met, he kissed her. His lips were cool against hers, but the emotion behind the kiss was pure fire. Eleanor melted into him, feeling the rightness of it, the inevitability. When they finally pulled apart, Lucian rested his forehead against hers. "I will spend every day of our marriage trying to be worthy of you." "You already are," Eleanor said. "You already are." The wedding took place in the garden of the Belgrave Square house, attended by a small gathering of immortals and the few humans who knew their secret. Catherine served as Eleanor's attendant, while an ancient vampire named Marcus stood as Lucian's witness. The ceremony was simple but profound, conducted by a priest who had himself been turned centuries ago and who understood the weight of vows spoken between mortal and immortal. Eleanor wore a gown of ivory silk, simple and elegant, with white roses in her hair. Lucian wore black, as always, but his eyes held a light she had never seen before. Hope, joy, peace. "I, Lucian Blackwood, take you, Eleanor Hartwell, to be my wife," he said, his voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes. "I vow to honor you, to protect you, to love you for as long as you will have me. I vow to respect your choices, to support your dreams, to stand beside you as your equal and your partner. I vow to give you the life you deserve, whether that life spans decades or centuries." Eleanor's own vows were simpler, but no less profound. "I, Eleanor Hartwell, take you, Lucian Blackwood, to be my husband. I vow to see you, truly see you, for all that you are. I vow to stand beside you through whatever comes, to share your burdens and your joys. I vow to love you, not despite what you are, but because of it. You are not a monster. You are not a curse. You are the man I choose today and always. When the priest pronounced them married, Lucien kissed her with a tenderness that spoke of centuries of loneliness finally ending. The small gathering applauded, and Eleanor felt a peace settle over her that she had never known. She was no longer the poor relation, no longer the wallflower. She was Eleanor Blackwood, wife to an immortal, mistress of her own fate. The year that followed was the happiest of Eleanor's life. She and Lucien travelled throughout Europe, visiting his various estates, meeting the immortal community that existed in the shadows of human society. She learned their history, their customs, their careful balance between their nature and their humanity. And as the year drew to a close, Eleanor found that her resolve had not wavered. She wanted immortality. She wanted centuries with Lucien. She wanted to stand beside him as his true equal, not as a mortal who would age and die while he remained unchanged. On their first anniversary, Eleanor raised the subject over dinner. "The year is complete," she said quietly, "and my answer has not changed. I want to be transformed." Lucien set down his wineglass, his expression serious. "Are you certain? There is no going back once it is done." "I am certain. I have never been more certain of anything." He studied her face for a long moment, searching for doubt. Finding none, he nodded slowly. "Then I will honor my vow. But Eleanor, you must understand what will happen. The transformation is painful. You will die, in a sense, and be reborn. Your heart will stop. Your body will change. And when you wake, you will be different, stronger, faster, but also hungrier. The thirst for blood will be overwhelming at first." "I understand," Eleanor said, "and I am ready." That night, in their bedroom with moonlight streaming through the windows, Lucien held Eleanor close. "I love you," he whispered against her hair. "I will love you through this transformation and beyond. I will teach you to control the hunger. I will help you navigate your new existence. You will not be alone in this." "I know," Eleanor said. "I trust you." Lucien's fangs, which he had kept carefully hidden throughout their courtship, descended. Eleanor felt a moment of primal fear, but she pushed it aside. This was her choice, her future. He bit gently, his fangs piercing the soft skin of her throat. The pain was sharp but brief, replaced by a strange euphoria as he drank. Eleanor felt her life draining away, felt her heartbeat slowing, felt darkness creeping in at the edges of her vision. Then Lucien pulled away, biting his own wrist and pressing it to her lips. "Drink," he commanded gently. "Drink and be reborn." The taste of his blood was copper and starlight, burning down her throat like liquid fire. Eleanor drank deeply, feeling power flood through her veins, feeling her body changing, transforming. Her heart gave one final beat, then stopped. Darkness claimed her. When Eleanor woke, the world had changed. Every sound was amplified, every scent distinct. She could hear Lucien's breathing beside her, could smell the roses in the garden 3 floors below, could see in the darkness as clearly as if it were day. And she was hungry, desperately, overwhelmingly hungry. "I know," Lucien said softly, helping her sit up. "The hunger is difficult at first, but I have prepared. There is animal blood, ethically sourced. It will sustain you until you learn control." The first weeks were challenging. Eleanor struggled with her new strength, accidentally breaking teacups and doorknobs. She struggled with the hunger, learning to satisfy it without losing herself to the bloodlust. But through it all, Lucian remained patient, teaching her, guiding her, loving her. And slowly, Eleanor adapted. She learned to move with her new grace, to control her strength, to manage her hunger. She learned to exist in the space between human and immortal, to navigate both worlds with confidence. 3 months after her transformation, Eleanor and Lucian attended a ball at the Ashford estate, the same venue where they had first met. Eleanor wore a gown of deep crimson, her new beauty turning every head as they entered. Lady Pemberton was there, older now, but no less venomous. She approached Eleanor with barely concealed hostility. "Lady Blackwood, how unexpected to see you here." Eleanor smiled, a smile that showed just a hint of fang. "Life is full of surprises, Lady Pemberton. I have learned to embrace them." Amelia, married now to a minor baron and looking tired despite her finery, watched from across the room with something that might have been envy. Eleanor felt no triumph, only a distant pity. Her cousin had everything society valued, and yet she looked profoundly unhappy. "Shall we dance?" Lucian murmured, offering his arm. "Always," Eleanor replied. They moved onto the floor, and this time Eleanor danced as his equal. Her new strength matched his, her grace rivaling his centuries of practice. They moved together like two parts of a whole, and the watching crowd could not look away. "Do you regret it?" Lucian asked softly as they turned across the floor. "Do you regret choosing this life?" Eleanor looked up at him, at the face she would see unchanged for centuries to come, and smiled. "Not for a single moment. I chose you. I chose us. I chose a life of meaning over a life of quiet desperation. How could I regret that?" "I feared you would grow to resent me," Lucian admitted. "I feared I had stolen your humanity." "You gave me power," Eleanor corrected. "You gave me choice. You gave me a partnership of equals. That is not theft. That is love." The waltz ended, and they stood together in the center of the ballroom, two immortals among mortals, two souls who had found each other across the vast expanse of time and circumstance. Years passed. Decades. Eleanor and Lucian traveled the world, watching history unfold, participating in it where they could. They built a life together that spanned continents and centuries. A love that deepened rather than faded with time. And sometimes, when they attended balls in whatever city they called home, Eleanor would remember that first night. She would remember standing in the shadows, believing herself worthless, believing she had nothing to offer. She would remember the mocking voices, the cruel laughter, the certainty that she would never be anything more than the poor relation. And she would smile, because those voices had been so very wrong. She had survived the Ancient One's bite. She had not merely survived, she had thrived. She had transformed from victim to victor, from powerless to powerful, from overlooked to unforgettable. The mortal girl they had mocked at the ball had become something far greater than they could have imagined. She had become eternal, she had become loved. She had become exactly who she was always meant to be. And in Lucian's arms, dancing through yet another glittering ballroom in yet another century, Eleanor Blackwood knew that she had made the right choice. Not because immortality was easy, but because it was hers. Her choice, her life, her love forever.